Hey, what's up guys? So let's take a look at the 70mm 4K Omni X800 dashcam. This is a 360-degree dashcam that's capable of rotating its lens to help you better capture what's going on around your vehicle.
And I think one of the best use cases for this is the fact that it can actually rotate around and track people walking around your car while you're parked to record, for example, somebody who might want to break into your car. You can also use this capability here while you're driving. So if there's something important that happens off to the side, such as say a police encounter, you can actually use voice commands to tell the dashcam to point in different directions. And what I'm curious to find out is how well this works and how it compares to a traditional dashcam. How good of a job does it do at actually tracking different things around your car? How much better is this going to be at actually capturing important stuff that a traditional dashcam might miss? Or on the flip side, if it's maybe pointed a certain way, is it going to be missing something that a traditional dashcam might capture? And so let's test it and find out.
Now there's actually many different ways of getting a 360-degree dashcam, which I've covered in other videos. For example, you can do a DIY solution where you add some additional cameras to the side of the vehicle. You've got dashcams like the VFO A329S 3-channel, which has your traditional front and rear dashcams, and it also adds an interior fisheye cabin camera that helps you record not only inside the car, but also off to the sides as well. Then you've also got dashcams like the Vantrue E360, which has not just one, but two fisheye lenses pointing both front and rear that also offers you a full-time 360-degree view. And in an upcoming video, I plan on doing a more head-to-head comparison here between the 4K Omni and some of the other approaches of 360-degree style dashcams, so make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see when that video goes live. Now, what's different here about this 4K Omni, though, is the fact that unlike all the other dashcams which are relying on multiple different fixed cameras, this one's actually going to be taking its main camera and actively looking for anything that's important and interesting, and then tracking it over time. It does also have a fixed rear camera as well that can go on the back window, but really the main focus here is going to be this front camera, which is actually able to turn and follow important things happening around the car.
Now, to get more familiar with the dashcam, let's take a closer look here at its design. So of course you've got the main front-facing dashcam, and it's available with an optional rear dashcam as well. They both feature Sony Starvis 2 sensors. We've got a high-res 4K sensor here for the front with the IMX678, and then a lower-res 1080p sensor here on the rear with the IMX662. We've got an f1.7 aperture here for the front lens and f1.55 for the rear. Now, I want to set this aside because, well, this is going to be kind of the main event and the focus here of this review, particularly the rotating aspect here of this dash cam. Now, this is designed to be a front-facing dash cam here like this, though you can also, of course, point it to the left, you can point it to the right, or you can even have it spin all the way around to record the inside of the car. Though obviously when you're doing that, you're going to be losing the main front-facing dash cam because it only has one lens that's rotating around in different directions here. And well, let's actually go ahead and power on the dash cam. We've got two different ports right there. We'll plug in power here into the USB Type-C port. The rear cam actually goes right here into the micro HDMI port. Now, when the dash cam is powering on, we've got a little LCD right here on the back, and it's going to go ahead and start doing like a self-test here, spinning the lens around. We've also got a cutesy face here on the rear, which my 5-year-old actually really likes. And then once we're up and running, the screen is also going to be giving us a preview as far as what the dash cam sees, and we can use the buttons here on the side to go into the menu and adjust some of the different settings here. The other button here on the top will allow us to maybe turn some of this stuff on and off, and then it also doubles as a power button as well. On this side of the dash cam, we've got the port for the micro SD card slot here like this, and it supports cards as large as 512 gigs. The mount here on top is adjustable at different angles, including a vertical mounting style here like this. That said, a number of people have actually noticed in some of the driving footage some vibrations. I'm not sure if that's actually due to the mount or maybe a little bit of play here and kind of like the motorized rotating lens element, but that's something to be aware of as well. Then taking a closer look here at the mount itself, it features double stick tape, and there's also a quick release here so you can rotate and twist the dash cam off the windshield like that. There is no optional suction cup mount available for this one. It's just going to be with this double stick tape mount. Under the hood, we've got a supercapacitor to help handle high heat, which is an improvement over the previous 1080p version that had an internal lithium-ion battery. There's GPS built in, as well as 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which you can just enable and disable right there to connect to the app. The app is going to allow you to adjust more settings that are available here on the back of the dash cam. These are just kind of some of the main ones that you might want to turn on and off. ADAS, for example, it does feature it, but that stuff is always annoying, so I always like to turn it off. The app also supports over-the-air updates to update the firmware of the dashcam to add new features and fix bugs, which is very convenient. There's also an optional circular polarizer that's available for the Dashcam as well that has a pretty cool design. It's actually a two-piece polarizer. We've got kind of like a friction fit mount here for it, as well as the polarizer itself that clips in and then is adjustable using these lines at the bottom here for alignment. And the idea is you can just press it onto the Dashcam here like this to help minimize reflections off the windshield, especially in sunny weather, though I do notice a bit of vignetting here with the polarizer, kind of blacking out some of the corners while you're driving. It's also worth mentioning that there's two different designs here for the Dashcam. I've got the one here that's all black. I prefer this design, but they also offer one that has a red and white color scheme if you prefer that look instead. Now, to power the Dashcam, you can use the included cigarette lighter power adapter here like this that has two different USB Type A ports, one to power the Dashcam and a second one to power another device such as your phone. Alternatively, if you want a cleaner installation that doesn't use your cigarette lighter port, you can actually use something like the optional hardwire cable. This is designed to be permanently installed in the car, and it can tap into a power source such as your vehicle's fuse box. The cables then run behind the vehicle trim and plug into the Dashcam here like that. Additionally, they also sell a different hardwire cable like this. This one actually has an LTE antenna inside, and then you can pop in a SIM card, and it's going to add some cloud support here for the Dashcam so that you can connect to it remotely, get notifications in case of an impact while you're parked, or live stream the footage over the cloud. Additionally, you can also use the dedicated battery pack from 70mi to power the Dashcam while you're parked so you're not reliant on the car battery for parking recording. And it's got a number of different options here as far as how it connects to the Dashcam. You can either use the USB cable here like this to connect directly to the Dashcam, which is very convenient, but does actually have some issues that I'll touch on here later in the video. Or you can just connect directly here to the Dashcam using the traditional 3-wire hardwire cable like the cables that we just looked at. And then to charge the battery pack, you can either plug it into the cigarette lighter or you can hardwire it for even faster charging and a cleaner install.
Now, diving into the Dashcam's video quality here briefly, the front camera relies on a 4K Sony Starvis 2 sensor, the Sony IMX678. And that's a nice high-end image sensor. It's actually the best Dashcam sensor that's currently available. And it can record in both 4K at 30 FPS with HDR, or if you turn off HDR and you're running it in single channel mode, you can also have it capture at 4K and 60 FPS. Though personally, I'm not a huge fan of 60 FPS. I actually find HDR to be much more helpful overall than having twice as many frames. Additionally, 60 FPS does not automatically guarantee faster shutter speeds and thus less motion blur, even in the daytime. And if we compare the two here at night, which is where we see the biggest differences, well, I find that 30 FPS with HDR is far more effective at capturing reflective license plates when your headlights are shining on them. Additionally, you'll also notice that the surroundings are darker and harder to see into at 60 FPS as well. And this is just a natural trade-off of having twice as many frames every second and thus less time to expose each individual frame. Additionally, it looks like this Dashcam is not actually boosting the sensitivity when you're recording at 60 FPS to help compensate and boost the overall brightness. Then taking a look at the HDR feature, it actually seems pretty effective here. I did a comparison with the VFO 8229 Pro, and I found the results with the 70mi to actually be pretty favorable. Now, your results may vary, of course, from one situation to another, but I found that in stationary testing, the 70mi actually does a little better job at capturing license plates, though this does seem to vary depending on where you happen to stop. For example, in some other situations, the results are actually going to be pretty similar. Now, that said, when you're moving, it's actually the VFO that has the edge over the 70mi. But either way, this 70mi is actually performing quite well here. Now, it's also worth noting that there's no auto HDR feature in the 70mi the way you have in the VFO and some other brands, and so for that reason, the HDR functionality, if you turn it on, it's always going to be running both day and night. Next, let's dive into the parking mode functionality, which it calls Sentinel mode. This is one of the main things that I wanted to test here with this Dashcam. And the overall idea is that it's designed to track suspicious people that are walking around your vehicle. Now, when a suspicious person is detected, it's going to start tracking that person for a little while and obviously rotating around as they walk around the car, and then it's going to recenter itself once it's done. There's also going to be a red warning ring that lights up around the Dashcam, which is going to be alerting any potential car prowlers that there is a Dashcam rolling. It's not designed to record every single person that walks by your vehicle, but just the ones that it deems to be the most suspicious. And they said that in order to make this determination, they're actually relying on AI. It's different than other dash cams, which are just using like basic motion detection, which is why they can trigger on like leaves blowing in the wind and stuff. And in practice, I do actually find fewer recordings here and unwanted recordings with the 70mm compared to a lot of the other dash cams that I've tested. Now, as far as what 70mm is looking for in order to determine a suspicious person, there's a number of different factors, including, how close they are to the car, how long they are in the frame, etc. And I actually found that with the default settings for motion detection, it actually missed a lot. And so for that reason, I've actually cranked the motion detection sensitivity all the way up to ultra high, which is only going to take about 2 to 3 seconds before the motion detection kicks in and begins recording. The other options are going to take longer before it starts recording. And this is important to note because even in the ultra high motion detection option, it's still going to take a couple seconds for the dash cam to do its analysis and begin recording. And so you're always going to be missing the very beginning of any sort of incident going by in terms of motion detection. Additionally, it's also worth noting that the motion detection only works on the front camera. And this, I think, is actually a big weakness. And so, for example, if a car prowler approaches your car from behind, right, the rear camera is not going to activate and begin recording that. Additionally, if they then approach the side of the car, the front camera is not seeing anything, and so it's not going to turn around and record the side of the car to capture that person. And then if they break into your car, again, the dash cam is still going to be pointing forward. It's not going to be turning around and recording the person in the car. And so for something that's advertised as a 360-degree dash cam, I would really want the rear camera to be working in parking recording as well for the motion detection. And I would love it to contribute to the front camera so the front cam can also start rotating and looking to the sides or the interior as needed, even in parking recording mode. And so for these reasons, I actually prefer some of the other dash cam approaches for 360-degree coverage because they're going to be giving you like the rear motion detection, and they're going to be offering a dedicated interior cabin cam to record inside the car. And this is especially a big deal if you ever happen to park your car with like the nose facing a wall, for example, and so the front camera doesn't really capture anything, and it's really the rear cam which is going to be the one that you're relying on to capture everything that you need. Now that said, if somebody happens to approach your car from the front, then in that situation, yes, it does seem to do a good job as far as actually tracking that person as they walk around. Additionally, it'll also trigger the rear camera, so if they happen to go behind the car, the rear camera can also help capture that too. Now, it's also worth noting that this motion detection only seems to track people, not other vehicles. If you want it to record vehicles in case of something like a hit and run, for example, you're also going to want to turn on the collision detection for parking recording. And so for any impacts, it's going to be relying on the dash cam's G sensor. So for any hit and runs or like a shopping cart hits your car in a parking lot or something, you're going to want the G sensor there. And when the dash cam detects an impact, it's then going to wake up and begin recording. Additionally, if you enable the surround scan option, this is going to change it so when it detects an impact, it's now going to scan around in all the different directions. So in case the impact is caused by a door ding on the side of your vehicle, for example, it should scan around and hopefully see that too. As a bonus, this could also be useful in case somebody starts to break into your car. It'll be scanning around, and at some point, it'll give you a quick glimpse of the person who's, breaking into your car. Though it would be, pretty obvious, and they are going to see that happening as they're looking around. Now, if you've noticed here, though, there is no buffered parking recording. And this is actually a little bit confusing because if you look on 70my's website, they do advertise buffered recording, but that's strictly for driving recording. In case of a car crash or something, yes, it can save before and after the impact because it's been recording the whole time. But in parking recording mode, no, it's not going to be recording before people approach your car or before any sort of impacts are detected. Now, to power the dashcam in parking recording mode, I've been testing it here with the 70my dashcam battery, and overall, it's actually been pretty good. I actually really like the fact that you can do a single USB cable from the battery to the dash cam, which makes the initial installation and wiring much more convenient. Now that said, I have run into an issue sometimes where the dash cam is not properly switching from parking mode back over to driving mode. And so what happens is I start driving again, but the parking mode's motion detection is now being triggered, so I'm getting the stuttery 15 FPS parking mode footage. Now, I've been chatting with 70my about this and sending over some logs, and so hopefully they're able to address this issue in time. But in the meantime, your best bet is probably just to use the traditional hardwire cable port on the battery pack instead. Next, taking a look at driving recording. Well, if there's an important incident that happens on the road and you want to save and protect that clip, you're actually going to be doing so by using the voice commands built into the dashcam. There is no physical button that you can press to trigger the emergency recording, and there's no optional wireless Bluetooth button that you can pair with the dashcam either. You're actually going to be using your voice here to trigger the emergency recording. And that's also how you're going to be rotating the dashcam to point left or right or recording inside the car. Capture inside. Now, when you're driving, the dash cam is going to be pointing straight ahead by default to capture everything up ahead of you, which makes sense, of course. But unlike parking recording, there is no automatic turning to follow different cars or people or anything. If you wanted to record out to the side in case of, say, a police encounter or something, you do actually need to manually tell the dash cam to turn using those voice commands as well. And the same is true if you want the dash cam to turn all the way around and record inside the car. Now, I find this feature actually works best in the daytime. However, it actually works better than I expected at night, despite the lack of IR LEDs. Now, it is going to help to have some headlights on your face, or the light emanating from your phone, or the car's display or something. But either way, while it's not as good as daytime video footage, I do actually still find it to be usable at night.
You can also use the voice commands to activate a vlogging feature by saying capture vlog. And when you do, the dash cam is going to point off in different directions. It's going to start by recording off to the left to kind of just get the scenery and what's going on around you. It continues on over to the right. And then eventually it's going to flip on here to the inside of the car like this and capture what's going on inside the car. It does this for a couple seconds or so, and then it's going to flip back around to capture the front again and resume recording normally.
Now, as far as my thoughts here on this whole rotating and tracking aspect here of the 4K Omni, I think it's actually a pretty cool idea, and I love seeing companies do something creative and innovative here like this, different than the competition. That said, I don't necessarily know if I could fully trust this and rely on it, because there's definitely some instances where it's not going to be capturing what you need, because the dash cam is really just going to be looking straight ahead. If somebody approaches your car from the side, you're not going to see it. If they approach you from behind, even if you get the optional rear camera, well, the motion detection doesn't work on the rear camera, and so you're really just going to be reliant on the front camera to trigger all of the motion detection. If you've parked in a way where people are going to be approaching the car from the front, it's going to take a couple seconds for the motion detection to actually kick in with the AI analysis. The default settings actually take quite a while for this to happen, so you're probably going to want to change it to like the ultra high motion detection sensitivity. This way it's only going to take about 2 to 3 seconds for anybody walking close by your vehicle to trigger the parking recording. You're also going to want to turn on the collision detection, which is not enabled by default. So if you wanted to record in case of something like a hit and run, for example, you do need to turn on the collision detection, because the motion detection aspect is really just designed to capture people and not other cars. And so I think this is a really cool idea that needs a little bit of work. And because 70mi has been doing a pretty good job of, well, listening to feedback and making improvements and working with beta testers and whatnot, I'm hoping that they can make some additional improvements, especially getting that rear cam if you choose to buy it, functional as far as parking recording. But even if you don't do it, if you just get the standard front-facing dash cam, you're really just going to have to hope that anybody who's approaching your car is going to be doing so from the front, because if they approach from the side or the rear, you're kind of going to be out of luck. As far as the driving capabilities for the tracking, I guess it's cool in case of like a police encounter or somebody approaches you from the side or something. It's not going to automatically turn in case like you're about to get T-boned or something. It's always going to be facing forward, so it's going to be just manually turning in case you need it. So maybe less useful while driving. I think it's going to be most useful while parked, but even in parking recording, I think there's some definite improvements that it needs. And so that's my thoughts here on the 70mi 4K Omni X800. If you'd like to pick one up, I'll put a link in the video description to the dash cam, the different versions of it, the battery pack, the LTE module for the cloud capability, etc. And if you'd like to see some comparisons with some other 360-degree dash cams, well, make sure you stay tuned for that as well. And so with that said, thanks so much for watching. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.